That's right. Today I'm reviewing the Blokees Terraventure set, Jurassic World, obviously, and I am very excited to get into this. So this is the way Blokees blind boxes usually work, where in a box you usually get about, for this wave, 12 boxes. And in those 12 boxes, you get a chance at getting one of the different many figures of this wave. However, if you buy a full box, it is confirmed that you'll get every single figure. Not every single variant, though, as the chase is usually one per box. You only get one of the chases, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, so then you just take out your box. Also, very nice box. I like the cargo design they went with the Jurassic World line. And then you get different pieces of a dinosaur. And then afterwards, you build it, and there you go. You get
Bingo.
dinosaurs.
Dino
So yeah,
DNA.
it's a pretty simple concept, which I think is the best thing for Blokees, because this gimmick of making model kit figures easy, but yet still engaging and fun, they do it really well. I really love the way you get to build these figures. It's not too hard, it's not too simple, it's just perfect. But yeah, anyways, let's get into all the things you can get in this series. So let's start off with the boring side of this series being the vehicles. Yes, unfortunately for this line, it does come with vehicles, which I think is the worst part of this line. First, we got a cargo truck that can hold a dinosaur at the back. Then we got a helicopter with some chains to hold the dinosaurs up. And then just a random car with a claw grabber. Sad thing is, none of these vehicles actually ever show up in the films except for the helicopter. But now let's get into what we're all here for, the dinosaurs that you can get in this wave. So let's go through what dinosaurs we have. The first one is the Velociraptor, then the Stegosaurus, the Spinosaurus from Rebirth, the Stygimoloch from Fallen Kingdom, a Triceratops, the T-Rex, a Stegosaurus skeleton, the T-Rex Silver Chase variant, the Velociraptor and Baby Velociraptor Silver Chase variant, the aquatic or hologram Spinosaurus, Blue and Beta Chase variant, and last but not least, the T-Rex and Goat variant Chase. However, if you buy all of them, or some of them, you get certain bone fragments. And then with those bone fragments, you can create one last figure being a T-Rex figure. So, out of all of these, I think my personal two favorites are Blue and the Spinosaurus Rebirth, which is in the corner over here. Yeah. But yeah, now let's get into the pros and cons of this entire toy line. Let's start off with the cons. Okay, so my first and the biggest con of this entire toy line is it's not fully focused on the dinosaurs. Where it's some of them you get dinosaurs, however, there's 3 vehicles in this toy line, and while I know they have to cut costs somewhere there and there, so probably use the vehicles so that they didn't need to put as much work into making new dinosaurs. I still think it's a bad idea to make the vehicles as, come on, if we're being very honest, who really cares about the vehicles? Like, you're buying a blind box, let's say you're a kid, you go to the store, you get a blind box, you're excited to get a T-Rex or a Spinosaurus. However, you open it, you get a vehicle instead. It's not very good of a feeling, I would assume. So yeah, the first biggest con is the vehicles. I don't like them, and I think if they're continuing on forward, either stop the vehicles entirely or make vehicles that actually showed up in the films, like the Ford Explorer, the Jeep Wrangler. Those would be cool. I'm not saying that they should remove vehicles entirely, but if they're just putting in random vehicles, I don't think it's such a great idea. Now, the second con is the figures. Now, while the figures are good, I would only really say that they look good, however, they are lacking a bit of something, and that is paint applications or details on the figure. Don't get me wrong, the texturing on these figures are phenomenal. However, they are really bland. Other than the chase figures and the hologram or aquatic Spinosaurus, a lot of these figures need paint. And I think that's what they're going for, where they are very customizable. But let's say a kid buys these. Do you really expect a kid to paint these figures? The biggest example of this, where it desperately needs paint applications, the Stiggy Moloch. The Stiggy Moloch, the Stiggy Moloch to me is the biggest example of actually needing to be customized. As first of all, the dome of the head, there's no whites at all for the dome or the horns at all, and there's just no details on it at all other than a black dot for the eye, and I think that is really sad as the figure is actually awesome. So yeah, that is my second con with this entire toy line, is that it doesn't have any paint apps on them at all, and I really think they would look amazing if Blokees put in more paint applications onto them, which is weird because they are known for really making their figures really accurate to the movies that they're in and putting as much paint applications and details onto the figure as possible. Biggest examples, the Transformer line and the Marvel line, where their blind boxes, even the tiny Transformers, get a lot more paint apps than the Jurassic World line does. So I think continuing forward, they should definitely put on more paint apps. Now let's get into the pros, and there's quite a few pros for this. Okay, my first pro, I think the amount of texturing they put onto these figures are incredible. Like, alright, the best example is the Velociraptor, where you get to see all like the scales and ridges on the body, and the texturing on it feels very good. They really put in a lot of detail into the sculpt of these figures, and I think the sculpting is incredible. So yeah, the sculpt on these figures are 100% the best thing about this line in my opinion, and they are really good. Now let's get into the second pro, being the next best thing about this line is, frankly, the price point. The price point of these figures, to get an entire box over here in Singapore, is around 30 Singapore dollars, where basically you get 12 figures, so that's about $2.50 a figure, and that is incredible. just to give you an idea of what you can get for around this price point for one figure, you could either get a very highly well, this is a bad option. I'll take the T-Rex. You can get a very good looking model kit figure T-Rex for $2.50, or you can get the very cheap looking Mattel Jurassic World Mini, which is around $6, I think. So for that price, for which one would I pick out of the two? Being the cheap mini mystery box types of figures, I'll take Blokees over Mattel's one, as Mattel's one only has one piece of articulation, being the jaw, while this one has a lot of articulation, which goes into my last pro, being articulation. Okay, so for this last part, articulation, I'm going to be using blue, and I'm going to be comparing it to another Jurassic World figure around the price point of $2.5. Well, it's mainly $20 onwards to get articulated dinosaur figures, being the Mattel Jurassic World Rebirth Velociraptor. First of all, the head here is on a hinge joint where you can look down, up, and then turn around. And then it also has a hinge joint at the jaw. With Blokees, it's on a ball joint, which allows you to move the head side to side, down, up, and it also has a hinge joint on the jaw. So that's the first part. Then the arms on the Mattel ones, you can rotate it only around 360 degrees. However, with the Blokees ones, they are on ball joints again, so you can move the arms out, move the arms in, and also rotate it 360 degrees. Oh, yeah. So then for the Mattel one, for the legs now, you only can rotate it. However, with Blokees, the top part is on a ball joint, so you can roughly move the legs in and out a bit. That's the only piece of articulation I would improve upon. But the ankle is on a hinge joint, which allows you to bend the foot. So yeah, that's incredible, that piece of articulation, and it really helps you with making the figure stand in poses which don't look too awkward. While with this, if you wanted to stand, let's say it's running, you can't really do that with the Mattel one. Now the last part, Mattel tail articulation is only rotating. However, with this one, it's on a ball joint again, so you can really do anything with it. So yeah, I think with the way Blokees have made their figures, they are beating Mattel at making figures. However, Hammond Collection, I would still say, is the best articulated dinosaur figures that is Jurassic World related. However, then again, third-party companies in China are trying to beat Hammond collections such as Nanmu, which I've reviewed the Indominus Rex figure, and I think that is incredible. So yeah, now my final thoughts. My final thoughts on this entire toy line is, it is a very strong start. I think there's definitely a lot of room for improvements. And I think the biggest thing they need to change going forward is bridging that gap between customizers and general fans of Blokees, or general people who want a good looking figure, because they really need to put more details into the figures other than the chasers. And also the vehicles need to be actually vehicles that show up in the film, or remove it entirely. Other than that, I think this toy line is perfect. I don't think there's any issues with them, and I think this is gonna go on for a long time. So for now, I am very happy with Blokees, and I hope they make more figures in the future, especially if they make an Indominus Rex, Indoraptor, Distortus Rex, any of the weirder dinosaur designs. That would be incredible. Anyways, that's it for now. If you enjoyed this video, please think of subscribing and putting notifications on. If you didn't enjoy this video, please tell me in the comments section down below how I can improve. But until next time, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever the hell you are, what time it is. Have a nice day and see you next time. Bye bye.